This is the story of 3 days in the life of two local farming families. The story of the Paynes and the Painters. The final preparations begin on a Friday evening in early September. All good church weddings need a bride and groom, a bridesmaid or two, and a page boy. A best man to get the groom to the church on time, a father to give away the bride, another father to receive a daughter, and a couple of mother-in-laws, not to say anything about friends and relations. Now when it comes to arranging a wedding, as you will later see, the Paynes and the Painters are no ordinary families. All this activity takes place at the back of the barn at Oxenbourne Farm, where I live with Marjorie and the rest of my family.
Tony, what happens when we come to one of these?
That's for lighting the flap over, don't worry about that.
Right, okay.
Just carry on staying.
Yeah, okay. You want two of you?
You want to finish this one?
Yes. You can pull the sheet, otherwise it puckers up from the other end.
Would you like
Want to go opposites?
Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dennis, would you like a cup of tea?
Love one, yes please.
Yeah, he's doing 7. Do you want a drink? Which one?
Start again, please.
If you're in the Navy, you wouldn't be saying that.
It's a bit iffy saying it on the farm, to be honest.
Well, Dennis is going to have to edit this sound out.
It'll be a silent film, this one.
Ben, got there?
Nearly.
Oh, you, Margot, do it right. And the 18 wins.
Oh, see up, lads, we've got to stop.
That guy rope wants gone off a bit.
Carry on, lad.
Julie? That guy rope wants tightening, if you will. Be great. Whoa. Ain't far right. You can't take it away, it's got your back
That man with the camera again.
We've been busy out here hours at night for the last 3 months. Pat this morning, and she's got some lovely baskets up there in the shade up there, and they've been, well, just sort of watered. These have been fed and watered and pruned and everything and that there. But, between the two of us, we're going to have enough, I think. be enough.
What we can spare, put one here.
Yeah.
I know they were hoping to have people sitting in here as well.
Stuck it all together just with actually spending one single penny on any flower from market or anywhere else, because I think the country wedding actually should be that rather than spending a fortune on very smart lilies.
It's now late evening and all appears to be ready, except perhaps for one thing.
You're actually an artist.
Actually, as I said, Sylvia did the flowers for me because I was really stressed out.
I got home because I'd been to Petersfield with Jamie. So I came home and I said to him, do you want me to take you? Or it's just, you know, he's just...
Hello. Andrew, yeah, fine. All right, Andy? You going to wash your chat?
And as the horses relax before their big moment, the guests begin to arrive.
Must be such a community atmosphere. The village going to it then.
I can't think with that lot.
Does that pick up sound as well?
That's what I always do.
What's your job?
Dave, you've still got the lens cap on, mate.
Used to be. Alright, girls?
I've got a Mercedes.
Stand still.
Right. Okay?
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah. You up?
Yeah, right.
Let's go. Bye.
The seat's too shiny.
Don't.
Right.
Stop on the top step.
Right.
Go forward then.
You guys are what? Don't you tread on that whip. That's it, mate. Smile. Good on you, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Left four corner. Oh, we don't know. It's not nothing.
And as Malcolm takes Julie up the aisle to join Sean, the cameramen sneak off to the Isaac. Another team of willing helpers, this time the drinks team.
That's
Mark.
Hey,
Mark.
let's go get the photographs. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
There we are.
Got to have
Alright, Keith. Not bad, mate. Not bad.
And another part of the food team cooks the pig, as well as himself.
It's like Jane's cooking. Some water?
No, that's all right.
Should have crackling in there.
And as the shadows lengthen and the party gets underway, we leave, but not without a thought of the morrow.
East Meon, in the depth of winter, doesn't make the thought of gardens open in 3 months' time very appetising. It all started in 1986 when a group of villagers suggested that people with interest in gardens should open them to the general public. It has continued ever since. The view of Church Street from the church porch, looking towards the solitary Duncombe tree, looks cold and unwelcoming. But early April arrives and a few hardy gardeners are ready for the first Gardens Open of the year. George Bartlett at the courthouse and Paddy Mason with Maureen at Church Cottage. To cope with the many visitors who come by car, Martin Williams from Strood and Chris Reynolds from the village act as traffic wardens.
I got my flies on that.
Paddy, seen a moment ago huddled under a rug in her garage, talks to visitors in her garden. At least the birds sound happy. Peter and Audrey Street's garden is on the side of Park Hill and always attracts great interest in spite of the dangerous road to negotiate to get there.
August, September? Yes, something like that. So I don't trim it, I never trim it.
Audrey, what this one here
There's not very many of them, you don't really see very
is almost a black one.
That one there? The edges, yeah. The only thing is, they don't
ones
seem
down
to see
here are
very well, so you have to do them
oh yes,
bitten.
yes, and often when you this and the headers. Good for
And it is in fact constructed of Indonesian farm cart. It's a wheel and a shaft that's been converted into a seat.
This is Peter and Audrey's 50th wedding anniversary present to each other. This is Mike and Tricia Blackstad's Tudor knot garden, and it is very different to other Gardens Open.
The new garden. Yes. That wants to be an old garden.
Oh, right.
It's a Tudor garden.
Oh, right.
We're building a Tudor garden, which is a bit anachronistic. But no, not really. It's a clever designer who did a lot of work into researching the plants.
How do you drive everybody away?
It's done really very well, and we have raised, as you can see, an awful lot of money over the years. The Good Causes Fund comes from the entrance fees to the events, and as you can see, over £22,000 has been raised in the 14 years that it's been going, and all proceeds have gone to East Meon activities or local charities.
Okay, and yeah, nice. That's lovely.
This is me in my garden, allowing visitors to roam at will.
Yes.
In the garage behind, the thrush is sitting, quite unconcerned at curious onlookers. She reared 4 families during this summer. I'll get you a flap off.
The doorway.
Keith Kitcher, seen looking for the odd weed, has been a staunch supporter of anything to do with gardens. In fact, he is feared by many at the annual flower show, which is run by the Garden Club, for running away with all the cups. He now no longer lives in the village and has gone to live at Catherington. However, he spends many of his days around the village helping out. Today, it's Susan Delmer Morgan's turn.
When you were looking at it.
The opening in June was a much warmer day, with more gardens open than in April. Paddy Mason is now out of her garage, in fact in the cool under the trees. Claire Bartlett has found a very shady spot, and Adrian Pelly enjoys a brief respite from visitors on his garden seat. Judith Perkins, David and Tina Stapley and Viv West have all taken to reading in the shade, whilst Tricia Bailey sits in the seat of custom in Glenthorne Yard. Tony and Judith Perkins live at Forge Sound, said to be the oldest house in the village. One thing I do know, it must be one of the smallest gardens and one of the fullest in the village, as this picture shows. This is Tina Stapley's herb garden. And that's Tina sitting. The courthouse garden is always immaculate. However, it does suffer from excessive church bells at times. The court hall is used on special occasions by the village, thanks to the generosity of George and Claire Bartlett, part of whose home it is.
I don't know what they'll come out like, but what I do know.
There's some nice plants in the front garden.
But with those two and see it.
Charles and Kathy Clayson enjoy their garden, and Charles, seen hiding behind dark glasses and a plant of indistinct origin, is currently chairman of the garden club, which runs the 2 open days, as well as the plant sale and the flower show. It has a large following in the village.
But no, I think we probably had about 300.
Viv is looking very regal. This is Adrian Pelly's very colourful garden.
How do you like my columbines? You ever see anything like that?
They're tremendous, aren't they?
But what I like is the way the gold and the yellow are setting off the mauves and the blues and the purples and the Cranesfield geranium in the background and the Zephyrin Druin rose. All rather clashing, but quite effective, massive colour.
What's the name of the rose behind?
Zephyrin Druin. It's a thornless one, which is perpetual flowering.
And I see you've got some poppies there.
Yeah, poppies, all sorts of shapes and colours, which clash like mad, but it doesn't seem to matter, and they go quite well with the Love in a Mist. People do appreciate if you can go around with the garden. I know some people in the village are unable to. They get so many people through, and they can't. But I like to go around the garden with as many people as I can and greet them and talk to them about the history of this and that, of plants, or why I've done this, why I've done that. And I think they respond, and they ask quite a lot of questions, and a mutual learning goes on. I mean, I hope I don't bore people by going around with them, and they'd rather be left alone. But I like to think that I know if I go around a garden, I do like to meet up with the owner and know something about why he's done this or why he's done that, or whether the thing is a success.
And 14 years of East Mearns Gardens Open does seem to be a great success, including, of course, the cream teas.
And then you take, yes, take a plate.
is a very, very special occasion, because if you think this magnificent millennium line here, the timeline, we go back to the beginning of this millennium. If we looked across the way, we wouldn't be able to see the magnificent Eastmeaden All Saints Church where we've just come from. Eastmeaden without its church is going to be a little bit like our school without Mrs. Canning's, because she is so much of an important part. She has worked so hard for all the children of this community, so much so that some of the children that she worked with have sent their children here, and you're here now. Her dedication and commitment to her work and all the extra help has been magnificent. This school, all the staff, all the children, this village and this community owe Mrs. Canning's a great deal because of her very, very great hard work for the school. Nothing is too great. In fact, if you want to know anything about anything, in fact, I'll tell you a little secret. Mrs. Canning's knew a lot about me before I even started work, because a very good friend of hers happened to be at school with me. When Mrs. Canning started work at this school, I was still at school as a child. So for more than 28 years Mrs. Canning's has served the school, and we would like to thank her very much indeed for the wonderful service she has given. This is from all your colleagues and all the staff, so with our love and best wishes to you. Class 1. Well done, class 1. And class 2 children. Well done, class 3. Thank you. A very good. And just before we conclude, one of my colleagues wrote an ode to Julie, and I'd just like to share a couple of verses. What shall we do without you? We really won't have a clue. You're a mine of information, Eastmeaden's answer to who's who. You're special. We're needy without you. Thank goodness you're not going far. We'll be making a list of questions to ask, so it's not goodbye, just au revoir. And in conclusion, all the children, all the staff, the governors, the parents, we would like to say thank you, not with 2 garden chairs and a parasol. We're looking, you know, to next summer when you're retiring. But Mr. Lewis, perhaps as former head teacher, and myself, will go and Mrs. Foote, perhaps, and Mrs. Bartlett. See, Mr. Lewis was head teacher when Mrs. Canning's was appointed at the school, so this is very fitting.
My first job.
It was, wasn't it?
Can you remember my first job in that cupboard?
Shall we clear this? Okay.
And from your colleagues, Mrs. Foote and Mrs. Bartlett, on behalf of everyone,
I tell you something, when I first met Mrs. Canning, I came for interview and I thought, oh my goodness, who's that severe looking woman there? And it turned out she's not at all severe, but has been an absolute gem and a great friend to all the staff in the school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to open? We're not. You've got a little hint of what might be in there because you're sort of.
I have?
Yeah.
Go on, Mrs. Canning. Open.
In France and deduction. Before this come out.
Open it. So why something else? You will see better.
So you come and help me open it.
Go further back. You will see better. Come on.
Well done, Zoe. Go on, William. Go and help us.
Come on, help me under it.
You've
got that They're all going to play with it when they like it long. You think it's a long stick? Is it? Come on, hurry up!
It must be a long grill.
It's not.
Right, Mrs. Foot and I had a cunning plan that we were going to put the gazebo up in the hall, but we weren't sure we could all get under it. So we just sort of gave you a taster. But we hope you have a very long, healthy and happy retirement. And thank you once again.
Thank you.
We'll open these as well.
Yes. And a sweet. No, please. No, I can draw the line like that. I can please myself, what I say. You can sack me if you wish.
That's quite a reasonable size swarm, probably about, I don't know, 30,000 bees. And if we spray them with water, they think it's raining, so they'll tighten up and won't fly, which is what we want. The other trick we've got is to smoke them. They don't respond terribly well to smoke when they swarm. They're best responding to smoke in the hive, but that's their natural worst fear, which is a forest fire. And they then tend to run away from the smoke. And in a hive, they would gorge themselves with honey and make themselves better tempered. But all we need to do with this one now is to persuade them to go up into an upturned box. And they'll go into the dark. The only trouble is, of course, we can't really poise the box on top of them. Although this swarm is very much better than most. Most are thick inside a hedge and you can't cut bits off the bush or tree to get them. This one, I think we can just lop off that piece they're on, put them onto the sheet on the ground, put the box on top of them, and they should run up into the box. So what I'm going to do is put the sheet down here. And I can put that probably just down here. It looks as if there's a hole of some animal under here as well. So if we put the sheet down, and then I've got the box which I'm going to put them in here. top. So put that there. And I don't think the farmer will mind if you just chop this off. Fortunately, it's only on one. Just give them a quick spray. Stop them flying. Now the queen will be in the middle of that somewhere. We'll just tidy this up to get rid of those. Now this should just go into that box, with any luck. It'll take a few minutes to settle down. But they're not stinging, not one, you see, they're in the best of spirits. Now, using Rosemary's Best Hessian, we can just try smoking the edges just to encourage them to go into the box, because if the queen's not in the box, they'll gather where the queen is. So they'll be into that box and stay there. I think they're going in quite well, actually. They're a lot less out now, aren't they? Right. Take them across. The hive has got these frames in, which unfortunately they're not drawn cone on this hive. It's foundation, which is the basis on which the bees will draw out the comb. and it's a starter kit for them, and it makes sure that the bees put the comb where we want it in these frames. If we didn't do that, they would put it where they want it. That's just like that. So in fact we can just leave that now with the roof on, because you won't need to go in. So they're inside the box and in this sheet. What I want to do is lay the sheet out so that they literally walk up the sheet into the hive. So I'll lay the sheet out now. There. Now this is the nice bit. Now, they will start to go upwards. They're just sorting themselves out, and with any luck, we'll see a few of them just going up, and we can help them on their way. You may spot in a moment some of these bees here will put their tails up and expose a little gland, and they'll waft a pheromone out which says, "Come on girls, I found a home." And you see how they're all heading up now? Now if you can get really close, if we spot the queen, you'll be able to film her. She won't be in yet, she'll be in this lot somewhere. But it's amazing to see them all going up, isn't it? Amy,
the whole idea when you start is to clear the bottom leg, as he is doing. Stevens 34 has been in New Zealand to see how it's done, and in numerous places. You then come up and open up for the neck. Another good sheep steering well. He said to me just now he hasn't had sheep steering better this year. And I said, why? He said, well, because they haven't produced any youngsters. In other words, they're barren. Clear the neck. This is where you gain time. Good full sweep right from the back end right up through to the neck. Look at that sweep now. I think the next one we'll time him on the next sheet. We won't start on this one. Go down the other side. Over the shoulder. This sheep is laying really well. The whole art of steering is holding the sheep. Not handling the sheep, just holding the sheep. Now he's going down, he's going to do the first sweep again. Now you see this one's going to be done in a minute, I think. Nearly, I missed me. There we are, finished, look at that. When we employ the New Zealand boys when they come over in the sheep shearing period, which is now, they can do roughly about, on average, a sheep 1.5 minutes. That fleece will weigh somewhere about £3 in weight. Feel the lanolin in there. You ladies with your creams and your hand lotions. Lanolin on the pot comes out of the sheep wool. Consider the weather we've had, ladies and gentlemen. This sheep is cheering very, very well. Main reason, it hasn't had any youngsters this year. Therefore it's producing no milk. Therefore all the goodness has gone back into its body. Stephen's worked for me for about 8-10 years. He's assistant to my head shepherd, Nelson Painter, who later on will be demonstrating with the dogs in the main ring.
I think he's fantastic at doing it.
Well, he's only a youngster. When he can do one a minute, he can do very well. Tell me if it's going to be a quiet one. Stephen will tell me it. Tear the belly wool off first. The last one didn't have any belly wool, as we call it. Take that rustle off. These sheep were housed last night. You cannot shear wet sheep. Start the hop, work up to the back side. On that side. Here's the tail. Alright. Come round, take a good sweep up from the brisket right up to the neck. Open it out, as we call it. Right over the shoulder, then the shoulder to the leg. We'll soon be doing the real good sweeps in a minute, which takes the time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mind the ears, don't cut the ears. We get blood flowing everywhere. I won't say it, but she's been very good to him at the moment. Right, for you to laugh, Malcolm. You can come over and have a go in a minute. A very back-aching job if you're not used to it. These New Zealand boys, they're at it every day when it's time. You're 300 to 400 a day. Right, finished. 3 minutes. Can you let the sheep go, different positions, pull up there. Pull that down. You let the sheep go, different positions, pull up there. Pull that down.
Put your leg on mine instead. Right there.
You don't have to put the leg over them when you're hairdressing, do you?
No.
No, by God.
Then kneel on
Over
your
here.
left leg here. Kneel down there. That leg should be there.
That's the trouble.
Hold her head with your left hand. Well, no, hold this like you hold her. Right?
I'm not big enough here to hold him.
Right, ready?
Right.
Yeah.
Alright.
Short back front, that's it. Close to the skin.
Hold your fingers like that.
Cylinder type with little pins sticking out of the cylinder, and as the cylinder goes round it triggers the comb. I'll just start it off and make a tune. you can play 10 tunes on that for life, but then you get rather fed up with them after a while. That machine is probably about 1850. They're mostly Swiss. Now this machine here is a later machine, about 1890 or 1880, and it's got addition of some little bells. Not so loud. Now, about the turn of the century, they began to invent machines, musical boxes, with interchangeable records. Now, we have an example here. This is actually a Swiss machine assembled in England for the English trade. And I'll just demonstrate. First of all, I'll play it. Now that record is from an American musical called The Runaway Girl, and the way the thing works is that the back of the disc has got these prongs on it, and as it goes round it activates the music comb there. So you can put different records on when you get bored of the one tune. We have another one here, the same kind of thing. Safe in the Arms of Jesus. But in the meantime, Thomas Edison, who was a great American inventor, was experimenting with recording sound. And here we have a selection of his early phonographs. These have a wax cylinder, a black wax cylinder, and the cylinder has grooves in it, and it travels across, the sound box travels across the cylinder. I'll just start this one up. You can change the records quite readily. They're very delicate wax. We're now going to put one on which is called If Those Lips Could Only Speak. This is a romantic melody. New record goes on there. Then of course the disc gramophone came into fashion, particularly between 1905 and 1915. These were the kind of things that were very popular in every home. This is an HMV, a small instrument. I'm not going to play it now. Well, during my time collecting those musical instruments at auctions and so on, I invariably came away with a clock under my arm. Not that I was really considered to be a clock collector. But these are just a few of the clocks I've still got. These little mantle clocks here, chiming mantle clocks. And then of course the Black Forest wall clocks. This one is a postman's alarm clock, which was issued to the postman in England in the 1830s and so on. Well, they had to go to the mail train and collect the mail bags in the middle of the night, so they needed an alarm clock. This is a French cottage clock called a comptoir. Very accurate, really a bit like an English grandfather clock movement. It was made both as a cheap wall bracket like this one is, or in a cabinet like a grandfather clock. This musical box, about 1898 manufacture. It has interchangeable cylinders, interchangeable discs, and is actuated by a penny. It's the kind of thing that would have been in a hotel foyer or in an arcade or a pier. Put a penny in there. It starts up.